Danny Cole had never felt so small in his entire life. The shuttle bay of Station Meridian stretched out before him like the inside of a giant metal whale. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved in and out through the energy barriers that kept the air inside. Some were sleek and silver. Others looked like floating crystals. A few seemed almost alive, with hulls that pulsed with soft light. And there stood Danny, a 26-year-old engineer from Ohio, holding a single bag and wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. "Keep moving, human," a voice said behind him. Danny stepped aside quickly. A tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms walked past without looking at him. Its robes were made of something that shimmered like water. Danny watched it go, his mouth slightly open. He had studied the alien species for months before coming here. He knew there were over 200 member species in the Galactic Coalition. He knew humans were the newest addition, accepted only 18 months ago after decades of debate. He knew that many aliens still did not trust his kind, but knowing something and feeling it were very different things. Cole, stop standing there like a lost puppy. Danny turned to see Commander Katie Mills waving at him from across the bay. She was a short woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been working with aliens for 15 years, longer than anyone else from Earth. If anyone could help Danny survive this place, it was her. He hurried over to join the small group of humans gathered around her. There were 12 of them in total, the first batch of engineers selected for the integration program. They would live and work on Station Meridian for 2 years, proving that humans could be trusted with important tasks. "Listen up," Commander Mills said, her voice firm. "I know you all studied hard to get here. I know you think you understand what you're walking into. You don't." She looked at each of them in turn. Humans are not popular in this station. To most species, we are children, newcomers. Some think we are dangerous because we come from a death world. Others think we are weak because we live such short lives. Either way, they will be watching everything we do. Danny swallowed. He had heard Earth called a death world before. Apparently, most planets that developed intelligent life were gentler than his home. They did not have earthquakes, hurricanes, or predators with big teeth. The fact that humans had survived such a harsh world made some aliens nervous. "Your job is simple," Commander Mills continued. "Work hard. Stay quiet. Do not cause problems. And above all else, avoid the Velkari." A murmur went through the group. Danny knew about the Velkari. They were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Coalition. Their empire spanned hundreds of worlds, and they had nearly blocked humanity's entry into the Coalition. "The Velkari royal family is here for a summit," Commander Mills said. "The Emperor himself, along with his children. They did not want us in the Coalition. They still do not want us here. So, if you see anyone with silver skin and violet eyes, you walk the other way." "Understood?" "Yes, Commander," the group said together. Danny said it too, but his mind was already wandering. He wondered what the Velkari looked like up close. He wondered why they hated humans so much. The first week passed in a blur of work and exhaustion. Danny was assigned to the lower maintenance levels, far below the grand halls where diplomats met and deals were made. His job was to repair broken systems, replace worn parts, and keep the station running smoothly. It was not glamorous work, but he did not mind. He was good with his hands, and machines made sense to him in a way that people sometimes did not. The other species mostly ignored him. A few gave him curious looks. One insect-like creature asked to touch his hair, which Danny allowed because he did not know how to say no. But for the most part, he was invisible. He ate his meals alone in a small cafeteria reserved for non-essential personnel. The food was strange but edible. Some kind of protein paste that could be flavored to taste like almost anything. Danny usually chose something close to chicken. though it never quite tasted right. On his 8th day, everything changed. There was a ceremony in the main hall to welcome the Volcari delegation. Danny was not invited, of course, but he found a spot on upper walkway where he could watch without being seen. The Valkyrie were beautiful in a cold, distant way. Their skin really was silver, like polished metal. Their eyes glowed soft violet. They moved with perfect grace, as if every step had been practiced 1,000 times. The Emperor walked at the front, tall and proud. His robes were black with threads of gold woven through them. Behind him came his sons and daughters, each one more elegant than the last. But Danny's eyes were drawn to one figure near the back. She was younger than the others, or at least she seemed younger. A princess, based on the small crown woven into her dark hair. She walked with the same grace as her family, but something was different. Her shoulders were tense. Her eyes kept moving, looking around the room as if searching for an escape. She looked, Danny thought, exactly like he felt. Lost, out of place, alone in a crowd. For just a moment, her eyes moved up toward the walkway where he stood. Danny quickly stepped back into the shadows, his heart pounding. She could not have seen him. It was too far, and the light was wrong. But for that brief second, he could have sworn she was looking right at him. That night, Danny lay in his small quarters and stared at the ceiling. He thought about the princess and the sadness in her eyes. He thought about Commander Mills and her warnings about the Valkyrie. He told himself it did not matter. He was just an engineer. She was royalty from a species that hated his kind. Their paths would never cross. He was wrong. The next evening, Danny sat alone in the lower cafeteria, poking at his fake chicken with a fork. The room was nearly empty. A few maintenance workers from other species sat at distant tables. Paying him no attention, the door opened, and someone walked in. Danny glanced up, expecting to see another worker. Instead, he saw silver skin and violet eyes. The princess from the ceremony stood in the doorway, wearing simple clothes instead of royal robes. Her crown was gone. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders. She looked around the room, and her eyes found Danny. He froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. She walked toward him, her steps soft and sure. When she reached his table, she stopped and looked at the empty chair beside him. "Is this seat taken?" She asked. Her voice was like music, but there was something uncertain in it. Something almost hopeful. Danny knew he should say no. He knew he should make an excuse and leave. Every warning he had received screamed at him to walk away. Instead, he heard himself say, "No, it's not taken." The princess smiled, and it was like watching the sun come out from behind clouds. She sat beside him anyway. Danny forgot how to breathe. The princess sat across from him, her violet eyes studying his face with open curiosity. Up close, she was even more striking. Her silver skin caught the light in strange ways, and there were faint patterns on her cheeks that looked almost like tiny stars. "You were staring," she said. "Sorry." Danny looked down at his food. I was not expecting. I mean, you should not be here." "Why not?" "Because you are." He struggled to find the right words. "You are royalty, and I am just a maintenance worker. A human maintenance worker." The princess tilted her head. "Does that matter?" "It matters to everyone else." She was quiet for a moment. Then she let out a small laugh, though it sounded more tired than happy. "Yes, I suppose it does." Danny risked looking at her again. "Your Highness, if someone sees you with me, it could cause problems." "For both of us?" "My name is Saravin," she said. "I'm very tired of people telling me where I can and cannot go." There was something in her voice that made Danny stop arguing. He recognized that feeling. The frustration of being told you do not belong. The loneliness of being surrounded by people who see right through you. "Okay," he said quietly. "I am Danny, Saravan smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. "Hello, Danny. May I ask you some questions?" "About what?" "About humans. About Earth. About everything." Danny blinked. "Why would you want to know about that?" "Because no one will tell me anything real," Saravan said. She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping. "My tutors taught me that humans are primitive and violent, that your world is harsh and ugly, that your species fights wars over meaningless things." She paused. "But I watched you at the ceremony yesterday. You were standing on the upper walkway." Danny's face grew warm. "You saw me?" "Valkyrie have very good eyes." She studied him again. "You looked sad and lonely, just like me. I thought perhaps someone who feels the same way I do might tell me something true." Danny did not know what to say. He had never thought of himself as special in any way. He was just a guy who was good at fixing things and bad at talking to people. But here was a princess from one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, asking him to tell her about his home. "What do you want to know?" he asked. Saravan's eyes lit up. "Everything. What does Earth look like? What do humans do for fun? Do you really eat the flesh of other creatures?" Danny almost laughed at the last question. "Yes, we eat meat. Is that strange? Most species in the Coalition do not consume other living things. They consider it barbaric." "Oh." Danny thought about that for a moment. "I guess we are a little barbaric then. But we also grow vegetables and fruits. And we make bread and cheese and—" He smiled a little. "And pizza. Do you know what pizza is?" Saravan shook her head. "It is bread covered with tomato sauce and cheese and whatever else you want to put on it. My mom used to make it every Friday night when I was a kid. The whole house would smell like garlic and basil." "What is a mom?" Danny's smile faded slightly. He forgot that not all species had the same family structures. "A mother. The person who gave birth to me and raised me." "Ah, we have similar bonds, though we do not use that word." Saravan looked thoughtful. "And this pizza made your dwelling smell pleasant?" "Very pleasant. It smelled like home." Saravan was quiet for a moment, as if she was trying to imagine it. "What else? What is Earth like?" Danny leaned back in his chair and thought about how to describe his home to someone who had never seen anything like it. "It rains there. Water falls from the sky. I have heard of this. We do not have rain on our home world." "It is beautiful," Danny said. "Sometimes it is soft and gentle, like a whisper. Other times it is loud and wild, like the sky is angry. When I was young, I used to run outside during storms and let the rain soak through my clothes. My mom would yell at me, but it was worth it." Saravan leaned closer, her eyes wide. "Were you not afraid?" "Of rain? No. It cannot hurt you." "Well, sometimes there is lightning, and that can hurt you. But mostly rain is just water. It makes things grow. And you have animals? Creatures that live alongside you?" "We have dogs," Danny said, and he could not help but smile again. "Dogs are the best. They are furry and loyal, and they love you no matter what. I had a dog named Biscuit when I was a kid. She would sleep at the foot of my bed every night." Saravan looked confused. "And this creature did not try to harm you?" "Never. Dogs and humans have been friends for thousands of years. They protect us, and we take care of them. It is a partnership. That is." Saravan paused, searching for the right word. "That is wonderful." They talked for over an hour. Danny told her about oceans and mountains, about snow and sunshine. He explained holidays where families gathered to eat together, and funerals where they came together to cry. He described music and dancing, laughter and tears. Saravan listened to everything with the same wide-eyed wonder. She asked question after question, never seeming bored or dismissive. When Danny talked about his family, she leaned forward. When he described storms, she held her breath. When he explained that humans only lived about 80 years, she went very still. "That is so short," she whispered. "I know. How long do Velkari live?" "Several centuries, if we are not killed by illness or violence." Danny nodded slowly. "I suppose that is why your people think we are not worth much. We are gone before you notice we were here." Saravin shook her head firmly. "No, I think it is the opposite." "What do you mean?" "You know your time is short," she said. "Yet you still run into the rain. You still love your dogs. You still make pizza with your mothers on Friday nights." Her violet eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. "You know you will lose everything, but you love anyway. That is not weakness. That is bravery." Danny did not know how to respond to that. No one had ever described humans that way before. Before he could find words, the cafeteria door slid open with a hiss. A Velkari guard stood in the doorway, his face hard with anger. "Princess Saravin," the guard said. "Your brother has been searching for you." Saravin stood slowly, her expression going blank like a mask sliding into place. "I was merely exploring the station. With a human?" The guard looked at Danny like he was something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of a shoe. "You know this is not appropriate." "I will decide what is appropriate for myself," Saravin said, but her voice had lost its warmth. She glanced back at Danny, and for just a moment, the mask slipped. "Thank you, Danny, for the truth." Then she was gone, escorted away by the guard whose cold glare promised trouble. Danny sat alone in the empty cafeteria, his fake chicken growing cold on his plate. He knew he had made a mistake. He knew there would be consequences, but he could not bring himself to regret it. That night, he returned to his quarters to find a small note slipped under his door. It was written on paper, actual paper, which was rare on a station where everything was digital. The handwriting was elegant and careful. It said, "Thank you for talking to me like a person. I hope we can speak again." Stanley read it 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and tucked it into his pocket, where it stayed close to his heart. He knew he should throw it away. He knew he should forget about the princess with sad eyes and silver skin. But Danny had always been bad at doing what he should. The next morning, Ambassador Nathan Cross called Danny into his office. Nathan Cross was a tall man with a serious face and gray temples. He had spent 20 years building relationships between Earth and other worlds. He was patient, careful, and very good at his job. Right now, he looked very unhappy. "Sit down, Mr. Cole," he said. Danny sat. "Do you know why you are here?" "I think so, sir." Ambassador Cross folded his hands on his desk. "The Velkari delegation filed a complaint this morning. They say a human maintenance worker was seen speaking privately with Princess Saravin. They consider this a serious breach of protocol." Danny's stomach tightened. "I did not seek her out, sir. She came to me." "That does not matter. The Velkari are one of the most powerful species in the coalition. They already distrust us. If they believe we are trying to influence their royal family..." Ambassador Cross shook his head. "This could set back human integration by years." "I understand, sir. I am sorry. I do not want apologies. I want you to stay away from the princess. No more conversations. No more contact. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir." Ambassador Cross studied him for a long moment. His expression softened slightly. "I know this is difficult. You did not ask for this situation. But sometimes doing the right thing means doing the hard thing. We have to prove that humans can be trusted. That means following the rules, even when they feel unfair." Danny nodded. He understood. He really did. But as he left the ambassador's office, he could not stop thinking about the note in his pocket. For the next several days, Danny threw himself into his work. He repaired broken systems, replaced worn parts, and volunteered for extra shifts. He kept his head down and his mouth shut. He did everything right, but Saravin found him anyway. She appeared in the maintenance quarters, claiming she was conducting an inspection on behalf of her father. A guard stayed at the entrance while she walked among the machines and equipment, asking questions about how things worked. Danny tried to keep his answers short and professional. But Saravin had a way of asking follow-up questions that led to longer conversations. Before he knew it, they were talking again, hidden among the pipes and cables of the lower decks. "You are avoiding me," she said one day. "I am trying to protect us both." "I do not need protection. I need a friend." The word hit Danny harder than he expected. Friend. In his entire time on the station, no one had called him that. Not the other human engineers, who were too busy competing for advancement. Not the aliens, who barely acknowledged his existence. "Why me?" he asked. "There must be others. Other Velkari, other nobles." Saravin's laugh was bitter. "Other Velkari see me as a political tool or a disappointment. I am the third daughter. I have no value in their eyes. My brothers and sister will inherit everything. I will be married off to some lord from a distant world to secure an alliance." Danny frowned. "That is terrible. It is tradition." She said the word like it tasted bad. "I have been groomed since birth to be quiet and obedient, to smile and nod and never speak my own thoughts. But I have always wondered about the galaxy beyond our empire. I have always wanted to see things for myself, not through the filtered reports of tutors and advisors." And then humans joined the coalition. Yes, Saravin smiled slightly. A new species. Strange creatures from a death world who somehow survived long enough to reach the stars. "My father called you dangerous. My brother called you primitive. But I looked at the images and recordings, and I saw something different." "What did you see?" "People who laugh. People who cry. People who hold each other when they are afraid." She looked at him with those violet eyes that seemed to see right through him. "My people pride ourselves on control. We hide our emotions behind masks of calm. We consider feelings to be weaknesses. But humans wear their hearts openly. You are not ashamed of what you feel." Danny thought about that. "Sometimes we are. Sometimes we pretend we do not feel things because we are afraid of being hurt. But you feel them anyway." "Yes, we cannot help it. We are not built to hide." Saravin nodded slowly. "That is what I admire about your kind. You are so fragile, yet so brave. You know you will only live a few decades, but you still fall in love. You still have children. You still plant trees whose shade you will never sit under." Danny had never thought about humans that way. To him, those things were just normal. You loved because love made life worth living. You had children because you wanted to leave something behind. You planted trees because the world needed trees, even if you would not be around to see them grow. But hearing Saravin describe it made it sound almost heroic. Their secret meetings continued for weeks. They found hiding spots all over the station. An abandoned observation deck. A storage room filled with old equipment. A quiet corner of the engineering level where no one ever went. Danny taught Saravin human card games. She was terrible at poker, but surprisingly good at blackjack. She taught him Velkari poetry, which was beautiful and sad, and made him think about things he usually avoided. They talked about their families. Danny told her about his parents back on Earth, about his younger sister who wanted to be a doctor, about his grandmother who made the best apple pie in the world. Saravin told him about her cold father, her ambitious siblings, and the mother she had lost when she was young. "She was different," Saravin said one day. "She laughed often. She sang songs to me before I slept. When she died, my father forbade us from speaking of her. He said grief was a weakness." "Grief is not a weakness," Danny said. It is proof that you love someone. Saravin looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool against his, smooth like polished stone. Danny's heart beat faster, but he did not pull away. "Thank you, Danny," she said quietly, "for reminding me that feeling things is not shameful." Their moment was shattered by the sound of footsteps. Prince Kethril stood at the entrance to the observation deck, his face twisted with disgust. He was tall and cold, with the same silver skin as his sister, but none of her warmth. "So the rumors are true," he said. "My sister has been consorting with vermin." Danny stood quickly, putting himself between Kethril and Saravin. "She has done nothing wrong. You do not speak to me human." Kethril's eyes burned with contempt. "You are nothing. An insect from a savage world. If I wished, I could have you removed from this station. I could have your entire species expelled from the coalition." Danny's hands trembled, but he did not back down. "Then do it." Kethril blinked, surprised by the response. "If that is what you want, do it," Danny said, his voice steady despite his fear. "But know that I have never shown your sister anything but respect. I have never asked her for anything. I have just been her friend. If that is a crime in your eyes, then I accept the punishment." The prince's expression flickered. He had expected Danny to beg, to grovel. He did not know what to do with quiet dignity. Saravin stepped forward. "Brother, please. This is not his fault. I sought him out. I chose to spend time with him. If you must punish someone, punish me." Kethril looked between them, his jaw tight. For a moment, Danny thought the prince would strike him. Instead, Kethril turned and walked away. "This is not over," he said without looking back. "Stay away from my sister, human, or you will regret it." After he was gone, Saravin let out a shaky breath. "I am sorry, Danny. I should not have put you in this position." Danny shook his head. "You did not put me anywhere. I chose to be here." She looked at him, her violet eyes shining. "Why? Why risk so much for me?" Danny thought about the question. He thought about all the reasons he should walk away. The warnings, the threats, the danger to himself and his people. Then he thought about a lonely princess who just wanted someone to talk to her like she mattered. "Because everyone deserves a friend," he said. "Even princesses." Saravin smiled, and for a moment, the galaxy did not seem so cold. The explosion came without warning. Danny was in the lower maintenance level when the station shook. The lights flickered. Alarms screamed to life, their harsh sounds echoing through the metal corridors. He grabbed a support beam to keep from falling. Around him, pipes rattled and sparks flew from damaged systems. The floor tilted slightly, then steadied. What happened? Someone shouted over the alarms. Danny ran to the nearest control panel and pulled up the station's status display. His blood went cold. Multiple explosions. Upper decks. The main hall where the Coalition Summit was being held had been hit hardest. Life support was failing in several sections. Atmosphere was leaking into space. And one of the damaged areas was the Royal Observation Lounge. "All personnel, evacuate to emergency shelters," a calm voice announced over the speakers. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Danny should have followed orders. He should have gone to the shelter with everyone else. That was the smart thing to do. Instead, he started running toward the damaged sections. The corridors were chaos. People of all species pushed past each other, trying to reach safety. Some were injured, limping, or being carried by others. Guards shouted commands that no one followed. Danny moved against the flow, pushing through the crowd. His heart pounded in his ears. He knew where Saravin was. She had told him that morning that she would be watching the summit from the observation lounge because her father did not want her in the main hall. The lounge was in one of the damaged sections. "Hey, "Human, where are you going?" Danny ignored the shout and kept running. The deeper he went, the worse the damage became. Walls were cracked. Debris littered the floor. The air grew thin as he approached the areas where the station's hull had been breached. He found an emergency kit near a sealed bulkhead and grabbed a small oxygen mask. It would only give him a few minutes of air, but it was better than nothing. The bulkhead was sealed for a reason. The section beyond had lost atmosphere. Anyone inside would have suffocated by now. But Danny knew the station's layout. He had spent weeks crawling through its maintenance tunnels. He knew another way in. He climbed into a ventilation shaft and started crawling. The shaft was cramped and dark. Danny moved by memory and touch, feeling his way through the maze of metal ducts. His shoulders scraped against the walls. His knees ached from the hard surface. He tried not to think about what would happen if he got lost. If his oxygen ran out. If the shaft collapsed, he thought about Saravin instead. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, Danny found the access panel he was looking for. He kicked it open and dropped down into the observation lounge. The room was a disaster. The large windows that normally showed beautiful views of space were cracked and straining against emergency shields. Furniture had been thrown everywhere. The lights were out, leaving only the dim red glow of emergency power. And there, in the corner, was Sierra single quotes VYN. She was alive, but hurt. Her silver skin was darker in some places, bruised from falling debris. She was holding her arm against her chest, and Danny could see it was bent at a wrong angle. Broken. "Danny?" Her voice was weak and confused. "How did you?" "I know this station better than anyone," he said, kneeling beside her. "Can you walk?" "I think so. But the doors are sealed. There is no way out. There is always a way out." Danny helped her to her feet, being careful of her injured arm. "We need to move. The emergency shields on those windows will not hold forever." As if to prove his point, the shields groaned and the cracks in the glass spread wider. Danny guided Saravin toward a side corridor that led to a service passage. The door was jammed, but Danny knew where the manual release was hidden. He pulled the lever and the door slid open halfway. They squeezed through and found themselves in a narrow passage lined with pipes and cables. It was not meant for regular use, just for maintenance workers who needed to access the station systems. "Stay close," Danny said, "and try to breathe slowly. The oxygen is thin here." They moved through the passage as quickly as Saravin's injuries allowed. Danny kept one arm around her waist, supporting her weight when she stumbled. She was lighter than he expected, or maybe fear gave him strength he did not normally have. "Why did you come for me?" Saravin asked between shallow breaths. "You could have died. I could not leave you behind. But the risk, some things are more important than safety." Saravin looked at him with those violet eyes, and Danny saw something there he had not seen before. Not just gratitude or surprise. Wonder. They reached a junction where two passages met. The path to the left led to safety, to the emergency shelters where everyone else had gone. The path to the right led deeper into the damaged sections. There was a problem. The left passage was blocked by a collapsed beam. The only way forward was to move the beam, but it was too heavy for Danny to lift alone. "There must be another way," Saravin said. Danny looked around, his mind racing. He spotted a control panel on the wall. The station's emergency systems. If he could reroute power to the magnetic lifters in this section, he could move the beam, but the panel was damaged. It would take time to repair. Time they did not have. The station shook again. More distant explosions. Or maybe the structure was starting to fail. "Okay," Danny said, mostly to himself. "Okay, I can do this." He pulled out his tools and got to work. His hands moved quickly, reconnecting wires and rerouting circuits. This was what he was good at. This was why he was here. Saravan watched him with wide eyes. I have never seen anyone work so fast. Humans are good at panicking efficiently, Danny said, not looking up from his work. Despite everything, Saravan laughed. It was a small laugh, almost a cough, but it was real. Something sparked in the panel, and Danny jumped back. Smoke rose from the circuits. No. He looked at the damage. The main power line was fried. There was no way to reroute power now. He looked at the beam blocking their path. Then he looked at the manual override lever on the wall. The lever that would open the emergency airlock at the end of the passage. An idea formed in his mind. A stupid, dangerous, probably fatal idea. But the only idea he had. Saravan, I need you to trust me. I do. 2 simple words. She did not hesitate. She did not ask questions. Danny felt something tighten in his chest. When I tell you to run, you run. Do not look back. Do not wait for me. Just get to the shelter at the end of that passage. Understood? Saravan's expression changed. She understood what he was planning. Danny, no. I will not leave you. You do not have a choice. He pulled his oxygen mask from his face and pressed it against hers. This will give you a few minutes of clean air. The shelter is not far. You can make it. And what about you? Danny did not answer. Instead, he positioned himself near the manual override lever. If he opened the airlock, the rush of escaping atmosphere would create enough force to push the debris aside. It would also create a vacuum that would pull everything toward the breach, including him, Danny. When the beam moves, run. Do not stop. Do not look back. Please, Saravan. He looked at her, and for a moment, everything else faded away. The alarms, the shaking, the fear. There was just her. Tell your father. Tell everyone. Humans are not dangerous because we come from a death world. We are dangerous because we will do anything to protect the people we care about. Before she could argue, he pulled the lever. The airlock opened. The world became chaos. Danny grabbed a pipe and held on as the atmosphere rushed past him. He felt the pull trying to tear him away, trying to drag him into the void. His arms screamed in pain. His lungs burned, but he held on. The beam shifted, moved, cleared the passage. Run! He shouted, though he had no breath left to shout. Saravan ran. Danny's grip was slipping. His fingers were numb. The cold of space was seeping into his bones. He thought about his parents, his sister, his grandmother's apple pie. He thought about a princess who wanted to be treated like a person. He smiled. And then, just as his fingers finally gave out, he felt something grab his arm. Saravan had not left. She was holding onto a support beam with her good arm. Her broken arm wrapped around his wrist. Her face was twisted with effort and pain, but she did not let go. Behind her, a team of rescue workers in emergency suits pushed through the debris. Strong hands grabbed Danny, pulled him back from the edge. The airlock sealed. The chaos stopped. Danny lay on the floor, gasping for air. Saravan collapsed beside him, tears streaming down her silver cheeks. "You stupid human," she whispered. "I told you I would not leave you." Danny tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. "I thought princesses followed orders, not this one." She took his hand and held it tight. "Not anymore." Danny woke up in the medical bay. The ceiling above him was white and clean. Soft lights hummed overhead. Somewhere nearby, machines beeped in a steady rhythm that matched his heartbeat. He tried to move and immediately regretted it. His entire body ached. His hands were wrapped in bandages. His chest felt like someone had parked a shuttle on it. But he was alive. "You are awake." Danny turned his head. Saravan sat in a chair beside his bed. Her broken arm was now in some kind of healing cast that glowed with soft blue light. She looked tired, but her eyes were bright with relief. "How long was I out?" Danny asked. His voice came out rough and scratchy. 2 days. The doctor said you almost died. Your lungs were damaged. Your hands were frostbitten. You lost a lot of blood from cuts we did not even see at first." She paused. "They said a human should not have been able to hold on as long as you did." Danny tried to smile. "Humans are stubborn. Yes, I am beginning to understand that." The door to the medical bay opened and Danny's smile faded. Emperor Thalvin himself walked into the room, followed by 2 guards and Prince Kethrol. Danny tried to sit up, but Saravin gently pushed him back down. "Do not move. Father, he is still recovering." The Emperor raised a hand. "I will not keep him long." He approached the bed and looked down at Danny with an expression that was impossible to read. The Emperor was ancient, even by Volcari standards, his silver skin showing fine lines like cracks in old porcelain. His violet eyes held centuries of experience, wisdom, and power that Danny had never felt smaller in his life. "So," the Emperor said, "you are the human who saved my daughter." "I just did what anyone would do, Your Majesty." "No, you did not." The Emperor's voice was hard, but not angry. The station was in chaos. There were hundreds of species fleeing for their lives. Many of them passed by the observation lounge and did nothing. They heard the alerts. They knew someone was trapped. They kept walking. Danny did not know how to respond to that. You, a maintenance worker with no combat training and no rescue experience, ran into a collapsing section of the station. You crawled through ventilation shafts. You breathed thin air until your lungs nearly failed. You held onto a pipe in near-vacuum conditions until your hands froze. The Emperor paused. "And when the only way to save my daughter was to sacrifice yourself, you did not hesitate." "She is my friend," Danny said simply. The Emperor stared at him for a long moment. Then something changed in his expression. The hardness softened. Not by much, but enough to notice. "When your species applied to join the coalition, I voted against it. I told the other members that humans were too young, too emotional, too unpredictable. I said your short lives made you reckless, and your attachment to feelings made you dangerous." Danny felt his heart sink. "I was wrong." The words hung in the air like something precious. "Your short lives do not make you reckless," the Emperor continued. "They make you brave. Your emotions do not make you dangerous. They make you compassionate. In the time it takes my people to deliberate, your people act. In the time it takes us to calculate risks, you have already saved the day." He looked at Saravin, who was watching him with wide eyes. "My daughter told me what you shared with her. About your world. About your families. About how you love even though you know you will lose everything." The Emperor returned his gaze to Danny. "I have lived for 700 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars die. But I do not think I have ever seen courage like yours." Danny did not know what to say. He felt tears pricking at the corners of his eyes, but he blinked them away. Prince Kethrol stepped forward. His expression was stiff, uncomfortable, but no longer hostile. "I owe you an apology, human. I called you vermin. I said you were nothing." He paused, the words clearly difficult for him. "I was wrong. You acted with more honor than many warriors I have known." Danny nodded slowly. "Thank you. It was not friendship. It might never be. But it was a start." The Emperor spoke again. "The Coalition Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss the attack. The radical faction responsible has been identified and will face justice. But there is another matter to address. The question of human integration." Danny's chest tightened. "I intend to speak in favor of expanded rights for your species. My daughter has asked to address the council as well." The Emperor looked at Saravin with something that might have been pride. "She has found her voice. Thanks to you." After the Emperor left, Danny finally let himself breathe. Saravin took his bandaged hand gently. "Are you all right?" "I think so." "That was a lot. There is more. The council wants to recognize you publicly, to give you honors and promotions. Ambassador Cross has already proposed making you a liaison between humanity and the Valkyrie Empire." Danny shook his head. "I do not want any of that. I know." Saravin smiled. "That is why I asked them to wait until you recovered before making any decisions. You should have a choice. What would you choose?" Saravin thought about it. "I would choose to keep doing what matters to me. Not for glory or recognition, just because it is right." Danny smiled despite the pain. "That sounds like good advice." The next day, Saravin addressed the Coalition Council. Danny watched from a viewing gallery, still wearing the medical gown because the doctors refused to discharge him yet. Commander Mills sat beside him, her expression somewhere between proud and worried. The council chamber was massive, filled with representatives from dozens of species. They sat in curved rows that rose toward a domed ceiling decorated with stars. Saravin stood in the center, small and silver in that vast space. But her voice carried clearly. "You warned me about humans," she said. "My father warned me. My tutors warned me. Everyone told me to shun them. They said humans were primitive, violent, dangerous." She looked up at the viewing gallery, and Danny knew she could see him. "But one human did not shun me. When I was lonely, he talked to me. When I was curious, he answered my questions. When I was trapped and dying, he ran toward the danger instead of away from it." Her voice grew stronger. "You measure species by their technology, their lifespans, their military strength. By those standards, humans are nothing special. But I have learned that there are other ways to measure worth." She held up her hand, still wrapped in the healing cast. "A human grabbed my arm when I was about to fall. His hands froze. His lungs burned. He nearly died. And when I asked him why, he said because everyone deserves a friend." The chamber was silent. Humans love fiercely because they know their time is short. They fight hard because they know what it means to lose. They forgive quickly because they understand that grudges waste precious moments. They are not dangerous because they come from a death world. They are remarkable because they choose to live fully despite knowing they will die. Saravin looked at her father, then at the gathered representatives. "You warned me to shun the humans, but I am proud to call one of them my dearest friend. And I believe in time you will be proud to call them allies." She stepped back from the podium, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the applause began. 1 month later, Danny sat in the cafeteria on Station Meridian. The same cafeteria where everything had started. The same table. The same fake chicken that still did not taste quite right. But everything else had changed. Saravin sat across from him, laughing at something he had said. Her arm was fully healed now. She had decided to stay on the station as a cultural ambassador, working to bridge the gap between species that other people sat nearby. Humans and aliens mixed together, talking and eating and learning about each other. The barriers were not gone, but they were lower than before. "You know," Saravin said, "I never thanked you properly. You thanked me about 100 times. Not for saving my life, for changing it." She reached across the table and took his hand. Her skin was still cool, still smooth, but it felt like home now. "You showed me that feelings are not weaknesses, that short lives can hold infinite meaning, that one person can make a difference." Danny squeezed her hand. "You showed me the same thing." A group of young aliens walked past their table, whispering and pointing. Word had spread about the human who saved the princess. Danny was famous now, whether he liked it or not. He did not like it, but he was getting used to it. "They are staring again," Seravan said. "Let them stare. Does it not bother you?" Danny shrugged. "I spent my whole life being overlooked. Being stared at is just the other extreme. Neither one changes who I am." Seravan smiled. "And who are you, Danny Cole?" He thought about the question. A month ago, he would have said he was just an engineer, a maintenance worker. Nobody special. Now he knew better. "I am a human," he said, "from a death world, with a short life and too many feelings. And I am exactly where I am supposed to be." Seravan raised her glass of whatever strange alien drink she was having. "To humans." Danny raised his glass of fake coffee. "To friends." They drank together, and outside the windows, the stars burned bright, not because they would last forever, but because they chose to shine anyway.